turning that into a habit in life. It's amazing how murmuring works, how complaining works, because we are susceptible to the same abuse of grace that the Israelites were. They had the same human nature. Remember I said, we always like to paint ourselves as the good guy in all of these stories when we read them, like we're like, yeah, we would have been Moses. No, you're not. We probably would have been the people complaining. It's probably who we would have been. Statistically speaking, we are not doing okay. Like when we read all these accounts in Scripture, put yourself as a person doing the egregious crime or the offense, because it's probably who we would be in the story. Probably. Statistically speaking, that's who we would be. Rarely a hero in the situation. And so ingratitude settles in. We're susceptible to the same abuse of grace of God and the grace of others, more than we would like to admit. But let's look at a simple case study of welfare in the United States. What is welfare? It is grace of the government to help you with basic life necessities. But we see that there are an entire culture of people who live on this. And I say culture because it's not tied to what you look like, where you live. It's a mindset. It's a mindset that sets in where now it becomes an expectation. And we even have whole political parties that run to feed the complaining mindset of people who have taken grace and abused it and now make it an expectation. Can you imagine if we pulled welfare out of the United States, what would happen? We might have an uprising. Fortunately, a majority of the people on it, never mind. But I don't think it would be a problem. We hear a lot of complaining on their free government cell phones, but there wouldn't be any problems after that. I don't think they could organize into a militia. But even though there are some who need it, don't get me wrong, there are people who need it. That's why it was there. But the majority have abused the grace and turned it into an expectation. And now if you take it away, what happens? That's when you're going to feel the effects. And what do you think God does with those who abuse his grace that we see all through Scripture? Look at Israel. When they abused the grace, what did God do? He said, I'll pull the grace back. And I covered that when we were looking at the Old Testament with the Assyrians and the Babylonians getting ready to move into a divided kingdom that was divided because of an abuse of grace. And the Lord warns the Assyrians and the Babylonians will come in. I'm removing the grace. They're going to come in and you're going to get everything that you asked for. Whoa. That's not what we meant by fix the situation, Lord. No, if you want me to fix a problem of you abusing my grace, I'll make you realize how good it was again. I'll give you a taste of what made you appreciate grace in the first place, Israelites. You want to appreciate manna again? I'm going to get you really hungry. In fact, what did the Lord do? He stuffed them till they were sick. Said, maybe you'll remember now in your sickness how good it was when I provided that in the beginning. And so we claim God is harsh or unloving when he pulls that grace away that wasn't even deserved in the first place because we had a heart of ingratitude. Not even imperfect parents would say, yeah, I'd keep just feeding them all. No, we discipline our children for that. And so we're susceptible to the same abuse of grace. And so when we get into this mindset as a congregation, though, you'll start to, where it starts on a personal level, though, with individuals, is that you will start to focus on the why nots in your life. Why I believe that I should not have to do these things because I should not be responsible for taking part. I should not be responsible for putting in the labor and the effort into what's going on, because now we deserve a building. We deserve a nice, comfy, lighted room. We deserve a larger building. And we start to get in that mindset that we say, well, I shouldn't have to do anything. It should just be provided. And you're asking where I'm going with that, as you'll see real quick where this is going, is that now you become uninvolved. Quickly, you'll become uninvolved. And so mature Christians, though, I'll back up here. I'll give a warning, though, that that even further down into the indicators in your life is the murmuring is kind of the top. That's where it comes out. And it comes in the heart. Starts in the heart. And then it comes out as murmuring. But even deeper than that, what's a layer down from that? Is that there's rebellion in there. You say, well, how does rebellion tie to ingratitude and my lack of wanting to go out and hunt that we're getting to in this verse? Your rebellion in there is that you're resisting to do something to obey God that He has told you to do. And now it's become an expectation that He will do it for you. He will provide it for you. And I should not have to lift a finger to go and do any labor, to earn any piece of this, to give any part of myself into this situation. And so what consequently happens is you will only mature. We will only mature as a congregation to the point of where our rebellion lives. That's the last spot we will grow. If we have rebellion at soul winning, if we have rebellion at teaching, we won't teach certain things. We won't do soul winning. We won't preach certain things. We won't fill in the blank. That is where our line is. That is where we will maximize our growth, is wherever the rebellion is, that I do not want to do this. And how do you know that? Is you'll hear it in Scripture. You'll say, that's for others, not for me. And we say, I will not do that. We as a congregation will only mature and grow to the point of rebellion. You as an individual, as a Christian, will only grow to the point of rebellion. And that is the maximum of your maturity at that time, until you can get rid of it. And so what happens though when we start this complaining is, it's really interesting though, because it's kind of like bitterness. They seem to be sisters in life. Is bitterness actually takes a physical toll on the body. People who are bitter have health problems. People who are bitter age. They just look aged more. They actually have physical ailments, arthritis, all kinds of things can set in from bitterness. Your brain has the ability to affect your physical health. Your relationship with God can affect your physical health because of that rebellion, because of bitterness. But what does complaining do? It's really interesting if you look at the physical side of things. When you start complaining, they've done brain scans on people that have ingratitude, they murmur, they complain a lot. And they've actually looked at neuroscientists have studied the brain, and it's called neuroplasty, where someone who complains, your brain actually rewires itself, almost like a drug addict. You rewire your brain every time you complain. And it actually, like a drug addict, makes it easier the next time to complain. And this is where the slothful man who roasteth not that which he took in hunting. Can you imagine how much this guy complained when the hunters come back, drudging back from the field? Anybody here like to hunt? I know Harry likes to hunt, right? Right? And I imagine when you come back, Harry, you're like, man, I didn't get anything. I sure hope everybody in my family complains at me when I get home that I didn't get a single thing. I feel like, Dad, why are you a lazy bum? You lazy bum. You went out there and you didn't, like, we're sitting here, we don't have anything left in the freezer, and you're a lazy bum, and you didn't even go get a moose, and now I got to go to the grocery store and buy stuff? I guess I'll put clothes on and get out of my pajamas, and we'll go down to the grocery store and buy something. I mean, you think about it, it sounds ridiculous. And Harry would be, brother, I need some counsel before I start to do bad things, because I went out hunting. My family said I was a lazy bum. But we laugh about that. But that's the mentality we get with God. And so the slothful man, can you imagine the complaining coming out of this guy? How horrible it sounds. And that's why I love, put a plug in for FBI, reading through Ezekiel. Those of us going through FBI, if you have not read through Ezekiel and witnessed how God views sin in you and his relationship with you, ouch. Ouch. My son looked at me and goes, Dad, that was kind of gross. And I said, yeah, sin is that way. It is that way. It's gross. And so we laugh at that, but that's how the slothful man is. It's someone who does that. But we find ourselves rewiring our brain, finding it easier to complain the next time. You know what's even worse, though, is if you have a congregation where complaining becomes a standard. Did you know complainers attract complainers? It's amazing. They find each other. They do. They're like best buddies. It's like they can seek each other out. And I was listening to a guy explain marriage, and I sort of agreed with this, the way he was saying it, and it was funny. But he said, you know what? He said, if you want to have a successful relationship with somebody, he goes, people always tell you to go out and find someone who loves the same things you love. If you love mountain biking, find someone who loves mountain biking. If you love hiking, find someone who loves hiking. If you love playing video games, find someone who plays video games. He goes, that's not the secret. He goes, because I've had relationships with people who love the same stuff I love, and it doesn't work out. He goes, you know what the secret is? You got to find someone who hates the same stuff you hate. He's like, that way when you go places together, you can come back home and be like, and talk about it. And I was like, that does happen. We do that. We go home and you're like, we both didn't like that, did we? No, I didn't like that. Yeah, I was horrible. Ever church shopped? You've done this with your spouse. You go there and you're like, what do you think about that? They're like, mm-mm. You're like, yeah, that's what I thought. And then you talk about all the things you didn't like about that congregation. But there's a nugget of truth in that, though it came from a secular source and somebody making a joke. There's a nugget of truth in that people who complain and dislike the same, they are attracted. They'll bond together. And before we know it, we can have a congregation of this if we don't squash it individually. So every time you murmur, complain, you are the slothful person, abusing the grace of God with ingratitude for the grace He's giving you. And so if we look at 2 Peter 3:1, there's another effect of this. So look at 2 Peter 3:1. Peter tackles this. Peter tackles this in his old age as he started out, young and ready to take on the world with Jesus to the point that he was corrected so often by Christ, and then even abandoned him in the final hours as he was on the cross, even in all of his young arrogance, his young boastfulness, his energy and everything he was putting into that ministry with Christ. He made so many mistakes, but now he's in his old years. And I fear I'm getting closer to understanding Peter more because I'm getting in older years. But he says in 2 Peter 3:1, looking back with a reflection as an older man, getting ready to be taken away against his accord as Christ warned him, you're going to be dragged away against your will and killed. And he reflects and he says, this second epistle, beloved, I now write unto you as what? As an old man who's telling younger people, pay attention, in both which I stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance. Did you know that one of the solutions to complaining is gratitude? Did you know a solution to depression is gratitude? One of the things that happens when you complain is you actually tie negative experiences to something that God wanted to be good for you. Have you ever tried to please someone who was in that state? And no matter what you do, you can do everything you can, but they'll find the one thing wrong and mention it. You can do an entire birthday party for them, make it a special occasion, bake a cake, do all of these things. And then you're celebrating, you're saying, we want to appreciate you and have a good time, and you cut in the cake and they go, you know, I don't like chocolate. What a waste of an event. There's people like that. There are. And my daughter's sitting there and she goes, I know you, Dad. You've probably done stuff like that. And she's looking at me and, yeah, that's terrible. Don't preach where people know you. This is a terrible idea. But that's how we can get. And what happened is that entire good thing, that grace of God happening in your life, and these wonderful things, Peter says, you need to stir them up by remembrance intentionally. Why? Because we tend to tie the negative in, and we erase the good, and we forget. We forget a wonderful VBS event because somebody put ketchup on our shoe or something ridiculous. You know, I'm trying to think of ridiculous things that make people upset. Or we have an entire missions conference week, but somebody looked at you and didn't greet you the way you wanted, and now it's all erased. That's how the slothful man views the grace of God. And so the murmuring and the negativity of the slothful man ruins any grace that was ever given. But you know what's amazing about it, though, is what does that slothful man still get? Food. Isn't that amazing that God still provides for us, even when we have a heart like that? And I say even when, because I should say we do, and we do it a lot, and we do it more than we would ever admit, and God still provides for us. He does. And so let's look at a couple more things about this before we move on to the good aspects of this. Is out of this, what could our congregation start to do? What could you start to do as a person? Is that we will start to undervalue, like the slothful man. The slothful man undervalued what he had. You know why? Because he didn't earn it. This is why when we look back at Joshua 4, 1 through 24, and you look at them coming across the river, and what were they supposed to stack in the middle? Stones. And what were the stones for? Remembrance. But the next generation, we see a short time later, what had happened? They had forgot. I don't think they forgot because it wasn't told to anybody. You forget because you didn't earn it. A few years from now, 5, 10 years from now, there could be nobody in here who earned any of the ministries that are in this church. And we see that as churches progress, and I think it really is an interesting thing to look at. It's like there's a magic 20-year number with a congregation. Once you get around that age as a congregation, I think the ones who were there in the beginning when there was no manna and they were hungry and God provided and said, this is wonderful, we're getting to experience the grace of God, are now moving out. And the ones who weren't there during that period, who don't know the story of the stones, who were not there for all the trials, now are getting things they never earned. They did not work for these things. And what does Proverbs 18:9 say? He also that is slothful in his work is a brother to him that is a great waster. That's how it is when you give free things. You notice, like, when you get something for free, it has less value. That's really true, isn't it? It's free. If cars were free, how well would you treat your car? You would be like, oh, well, whatever. Hey, let's go off-roading and wreck this car. We'll just go down and pick up another free one. But you pay $50,000 for that thing. I bet you don't off-road and careen it into a valley and wreck that thing and be like, I'll buy another one. Unless you're Elon Musk or something. You can't afford that. You aren't earning those things. And so you treat them with less value. And the slothful person will now also become a wasteful person. And it's just amazing that God still provides for us. But let's look at this diligent man, though, the substance is precious from this diligent man. Remember, there are vessels to honor and vessels to dishonor. Choose to be the honorable vessel. Choose to be the one who is doing the diligent hunting. Choose to be the one who is the provider. But what are the traits of this person? We see patience, we see love, we see charity in someone who is a provider. And I'll go back and I'll say nice things about Harry now, since I did not before. He didn't get a moose. His family complained at him and he went crazy. So I'll say nice things now. I bet Harry doesn't regret ever providing. I bet if he brought home that moose and watched his family eat it, the joy would be in the provision. And he would watch them eat. Oh, I know, we got some cooks out there, right? What's the greatest compliment you can get? They clean that plate. You got to provide. And that's what we need in a congregation, is providers. We need the ones who say, I will have the patience to not just be there for the excitement, which some are. They come in, the slothful ones are. They just want to be the excitement. They want to see the parade of the moose coming back, right? The caribou coming back. The animals coming back through the city gates, and they're excited. Oh, look, we got that. Let us know when you're done cleaning it. We can't wait to eat it. Yeah, I bet you can't. But the provider will endure that, going, I have patience because of charity, and I want to provide this for you. Knowing that there are some who will never reciprocate that ever. So if you're a provider, do not get frustrated when it's not reciprocated. That's charity. When you provide to a baby, do you hate the baby because it can't reciprocate to you? No, you love the child. Why? Because you want to provide. If you're a provider, if you're one who wants to work, wants to be that vessel to honor, puts in the labor, working and diligently working, doing the soul winning, teaching the Sunday schools, cleaning the church, vacuuming the carpets, changing the light bulbs, mowing the grass, picking up endless amounts of red cups from all over the church. If you're one of these, you have to stop and realize there's going to become a point where there's always a slothful person that's eating the meat that you're bringing in. Always. Otherwise, God would have no use for you. Everybody's at a different point in life, and you're going to be tired, and you're going to be wore out, and you're going to be the one dragging that thing in the door that you just went and spent days in the field hunting to put it down and realize I still have to clean it, I still have to prep it, I still have to cook it, and then they're going to eat it, and they're not going to say thank you. So if you're a provider, keep those things in mind. But if you're not a provider, oh, you haven't tasted the good things of life. You think that meal tastes good that they're providing for you? Wait till you're the one bringing it in. Oh, it's so much better. So what makes them good, though, is that patience and that charity. It's what makes it so wonderful. And so the hunter, though, the one that's diligent, isn't just in it for the excitement. They're in it from all the prep work to putting it in the freezer. They're there. You know, a lot of the hunting does not take place at the trigger pull. And I love using Harry because I just like to watch his face when I mention his name. But how much work goes in before you pull that trigger? How much? And I want you to think about this. It's not the amount of cost of equipment. It's not the amount that day that you walked. It is the years of preparation and experience for that moment that you spent. When somebody gets up to preach, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about in general. When somebody gets up to preach, you are hearing somebody, if they're 50 years old, that's been 50 years in the making behind that message. God has been molding them for 50 years to provide that. And the slothful ones will come in and they will complain of what was preached. And God says, I took 50 years to mold that man to give you that meat he just hunted for. He studied over decades. No, not for this one message, but to train this man to preach, to teach, to have your Sunday schools, who are your teachers who have spent a lifetime preparing a message for these little children. And you might get frustrated because you say, I keep bringing the hunt in and there's no appreciation. And God says, it's not about that. I need you to be a provider. And it takes character and it will take a lifetime to develop it. And so it doesn't happen at the trigger pull. It's been years before this that hunter is being developed. And so the slothful one is only attracted by the exciting moments of the hunt. Trust me, there's guided hunts out there. And what do these guys come over from other countries into Africa, into Alaska, and all these places? They pay for these guided hunts. Who puts in the most of the work to those things? The guy guiding the hunt. The people who are there just want the trigger pull. That's all they want. They want the excitement. They want to come in the doors and see the people. They want to come indoors and see the activity and hear the preaching and see the buildings being built and the property transitioning. But where are they on Monday? They're not putting roofs on. They're not laying gravel. They're not mowing the grass. They're just here on Sunday. Why? They want to experience the excitement, but they don't want to have the work. And so you become, as a slothful person, you just come for the feel good. But if you're that hunter, man, why can you trudge and keep going and keep going? Because in your heart, you want to see them take that bite, knowing that you put in that labor. You want to see them sit in that seat knowing I shampooed those seats to make them clean. And I know there's some of you out here who know what I'm talking about. The day we shampooed the seats. I was not a part of that. I saw it and I thought, Lord, I'm glad there's human beings that can tolerate this. I came in afterwards from work because we were just running these dehumidifiers constantly. But people had shampooed all of these seats. I was like, wow. And now you're in them. And so those people, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. So you don't come in the door just for that excitement. You are doing things because the excitement to you is seeing the provision that you get to put on their plate. And so we have to avoid becoming a congregation which allows that abuse of grace to start creeping in, the murmuring, the complaining. If that is you, stop it. It's going to take a while to retrain your brain. You're addicted to it. Stop. I want you to remember that if you complain about the piano playing because Marion doesn't like when there's 3 flats in a song and she makes her crinkly face while she sits here, and I love her face. By the way, public notice, if you want entertainment, watch Marion's face during the piano playing. It is wonderful. It is wonderful. I got to grow up, she got to grow up in my house and I watched her do these things, but now you all get to experience the joy. But what's that? Yeah, I'm in trouble. That's okay. You're married now. You can yell at your husband for me. But when you come in and you complain about the piano playing, you're not complaining about Marion. You're complaining about the grace of God that He even provided this piano to our congregation. I know where that came from. And I know how we got it. 100% grace. Guess how much money we had at the time when that piano showed up? About $3. And we were eating Lori Mowery's leftover cheese out of her refrigerator, having Sunday evening services. Look, we laugh because that's where we were, weren't we, Lori? We were. This is fun because you're getting to the end of your time here and we're going to be memory lane at your house. Eating her leftover cheese, and she would make sweet tea or whatever, and we were having a wonderful time. We didn't have any money. And someone gave this piano to us when we had none. It was wonderful. But you're not complaining about the piano playing. You're complaining against God for the grace that's been provided. Every single time. Do not deceive yourself. If you complain about the preaching, tonight when you go home, specifically tonight's preaching, 100% you're against God if you don't like tonight's preaching. I'm just warning you. But if you complain about the preaching, if you complain about the preacher, if you complain about the teacher, if you complain about the kitchen, if you complain about the chairs, if you complain about the piano, the sound, those complaints are against the grace that God has provided us. And you are the slothful one eating the meat from something that you never even provided, and God is the provider of every single one of those. And so we need to remain appreciative. Peter was fighting, saying, you're forgetting the things, stir up your minds. You need to be in remembrance, because if not, you will forget the things which are foundational, which are things like this of the grace of God, and you will begin murmuring, complaining, and you'll have a heart of ingratitude. You'll be ungrateful. And so when we look at these two people, we'll wrap it up here. And I know it's going to be a half hour early, so you all better pray a lot tonight until the children get released. And actually, I do have a short announcement before we go into prayer time. But I want you to seriously look at these verses and say, this slothful man is someone who I don't desire to be at all. But am I that person? Like, genuinely examine yourself. Because the Lord took me through something today, and he said, Ryan, you slothful little runt. He did. He said, you slothful little runt. And I sat there at my desk at work, and I just had a moment sitting there, and I was like, I can't believe the Lord had me put these things down. And then he goes, oh, just in case you think you were the guy that was the hunter I was talking about, you're just this awesome guy doing things, here's a reminder that you have abused my grace. And, well, okay. And I called my wife on the way home, and I said, man, I was like, that was a rough day. And I think it was rough because the Lord was saying, you're not there yet. You still abuse my grace constantly. And I just wanted to give you a little reminder. In humility, yeah, you go do stuff, but you aren't what you think you are. So ask yourself genuinely, how many times do I complain and abuse the grace of God? How many times do I complain against my spouse and my children, my situation? Oh, man, the gutters are loose on the house. Well, you have a house, don't you? Oh, okay. So you're going to complain about the gutters. Lord says, okay, slothful man, I guess you enjoy all of this that I've been giving you, and you're going to complain. And then ask yourself, what do I need to do to remain diligent? Because what is diligence? What is diligence? To persevere and to constantly be on guard. Be on guard of your mouth, your lips, what comes out of them, because that is an indicator. Be on guard to be diligent. Be perseverant to be diligent. Be all of those things to say, how can I, Lord, and pray, how, Lord, do I provide into your congregation? How do I, Lord, provide to those who will not be able to reciprocate? Please put up strength in my life that when the slothful people complain, not if, when they complain, when they show no gratitude, when I see them not appreciating the wonderful things that are happening, that I will remember out of charity, I did not do it for anything for myself, but for them and for you. That's all charity is. Because quickly, you will complain and you'll be on the slothful side. So we'll go ahead and close there for this evening. And we'll go in, do we have the prayer request? Everybody have a prayer sheet?